There comes a point when your job as a mother changes. You stop raising a child and you start mentoring the adult that they're becoming. It's a little different because you're jumping into a real conversation between Jamie and Stacy. We're talking all about our teenagers, the challenges we're navigating as mothers, and how different it is raising kids in the world that we're growing up in today. But the conversation quickly goes deeper. We started talking about the shift from parenting to mentoring, teenage independence and rebellion, technology, critical thinking, and something we believe our culture has largely lost, rites of passage. Because becoming adult isn't supposed to happen overnight. When someone turns 18, it's a transition. And maybe part of the job is learning how to honor that transition while giving our kids enough freedom to actually discover who they are. So we're bringing you right into that conversation. We hope that you're going to enjoy this little bit of a different podcast today. Peace Out Witches, the official podcast of Peace Not Perfection Academy, where we help women heal, awaken, and remember who they truly are. We're Jamie and Stacy, best friends, doctors in metaphysical science, ordained ministers, certified coaches, and founders of Peace Not Perfection Academy. We're building the world's most trusted school of women's spiritual growth, healing arts, and sacred leadership. Every week, we explore one real challenge women are experiencing, explain why it's happening, and share one practical step you can take to begin healing through healing arts and metaphysical science. Whether you're just beginning your healing journey or you're preparing to become a practitioner, you're in the right place. We believe that healing isn't found in one modality. Healing happens when we learn to understand the whole woman, mind, body, energy, and spirit.
You know
And
what? My
mm,
parents weren't really religious, so I went really religious. You know what I mean? Like,
me
it just
too.
takes time. You can't become a crone without being a crone, right? A crone is a crone because they have
I
experience being a
I will
crone.
always be here being me. And
Yeah.
when she's curious, if she's ever, I will definitely be here available to
Well,
her.
and high school is all about making judgments. It's all about like, is this the life you want? Is this the life you want? Is this the life you want? Is this so in order to do that, you have to literally be making all of these judgments all the time. So you don't get out of that monkey judgment brain for a while.
Yeah.
Listen
It's
to
not
that
my
kind of music.
journey. And I
No,
remember, and I feel like the more I push, the more she resists because of
absolutely.
rebellion.
100%.
And she's a
She's a
projector.
teenager. She's a teenager. I don't give a what when you're 16 to 24, your entire job is to hate everything about your parents and get the fuck
Yeah,
out.
she hates us.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's your entire job, or you won't go,
That's true.
or you
So
won't go.
I just don't take it personally because I don't really care. I care about her being safe and making good choices and loving herself deeply and not just pretending to love herself because
Right.
looks will only take you so far. Your looks fade, those things go away.
Hmm.
So go deeper. But I'm not, I don't know.
Our
I
job at
just,
this point is to mentor. It's not to judge. It's not to,
mm-mm.
we can't like our
Voice.
time of our opinions and all the things that we believe and all the things that we want our kids to encompass, that
Mhm.
comes up to age 9 to 10.
Mhm.
After that, it is really having to step into a space of mentoring a young adult. Like you have to think about back in the day when they would be 13, 14, get married, have kids, build their own farm. Like there is really this aspect of stepping from them observing and seeing what we do and then wanting to put that into place. And
Mhm.
then from about even 10 and 11, they begin to create their independence. And
Mhm.
independence means everything different from what you are
Mhm.
until about 23 for girls, 25 to 28 for boys. Because it's developmental in the brain, to
Mhm.
come back to the village, to come back to that piece. And one of the things that's really missing here is obviously coming of age. Because we don't do coming of age, the community doesn't meet the roughness that comes with teenagers. Like, think
Mhm.
about what we do to teens. You're no longer, there's no longer stuff available for you unless it's at the high school because it's all
Mhm.
oriented to little kids because they're going to keep coming for a while, right?
Mhm.
You're shunned because you're a teen. Oh, what do you know? You're
You're up to
not
no
looked
good.
at, yeah, you're not
Mhm.
looked at as like a young adult or as worthy or as a full person. You're looked at as like, you don't know shit.
That's right.
And it really is hard for young adults because they walk through in a world that doesn't accept them yet. And then like they get into college and it's supposed to be like this cool thing. Oh, you're getting a college degree, so cool. Like not that we don't celebrate the things through high school, but I
Mhm.
just don't think we have a culture that treats teens kindly. We don't really have a culture that treats kids kindly either. I mean, if you go to other cultures where things are made for the kids first, like places out, dinner. The culture is about the kids, not about being an adult and not acting like we're kids. It's very
Yeah,
different.
I feel like our world is more against children, period. Like on a whole, where we do not support children in this world with, different cultures and how they treat children. And
Yeah.
then our country is very passive aggressive about it. So on the outside, it looks like we are very kid oriented, but then there's no laws to protect them when it comes to what's really happening for most children or for a good portion of the children here.
Well, and nothing's really set up for them. Like there's
Hmm.
not anything oriented towards children.
Yeah,
It's oriented towards like adults. You would think then they would have more dinner places that were to feed kids, right?
that's true.
So
That's
we are
very
like, oh, you're going to go sit in a classroom from 8 to 3, and then we're going to go play a sport from 3 to 6. Then we're going to sit at dinner kindly, nicely, sweetly from 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Then you're going to take a bath, go to bed, wake up the next morning and do it again.
yeah.
That's a lot of masking.
A lot of masking, a lot of frontal cortex dumps when they don't have to mask. So then
Hmm.
the aftermath of all that, having to, put up the face all day long and just power through when they really shouldn't be. And then
Yeah.
as parents, we have to take on the brunt of that, especially if you have children who do not regularly live in that world, in that kind of schedule, and then they put themselves into that schedule because that's what I'm dealing with.
Hmm.
And it's tough. It makes parenting harder. And then like the rites of passage, when you don't have them, there's nothing to celebrate. It just becomes chaos and frenzy to adulthood, chaos and frenzy. And then around, like you said, 28, 29, 30, most, I will still call them children at that point too, because they're just really coming out of childhood at that point because they had to process all this trauma. By then, if they processed it, then they come into adulthood and hopefully they're functioning, positively and, have a good moral compass and are living their best life. It's tough. It is one of
Hmm.
those processes that, I was not prepared for open defiance at every turn, and I just wasn't.
I
But
can
then
understand that.
I
I
have a
think
lot of
that
compassion too.
I think that that is what everyone defines as teenage years.
Hmm.
Is that normal defiance? And I think that
Hmm.
some kids do it in their teen years and some
Hmm.
teen kids do it like in their early 20s.
I agree with that.
More like when they move out and they get a little older. Like I think that no matter what, they're going to have that aspect of going out and being everything that their parents aren't.
Yes.
You know, for our generation, it looked like dancing and raving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it looked like going out. And even then, it's funny because our parents were the hippie generation.
Mine
So
wasn't.
it wasn't like they didn't go out. Well, I mean, not that
Hmm.
our parents were
Yeah.
necessarily hippies, but it was that
Hmm.
generation that
Yeah.
was still going out on the outskirts of something, right? And starting to explore with other things and open up these pieces
Well,
that
there was a
hadn't been
lot of
open yet.
liberation happening from my parents' generation through yours.
Hmm.
You know, there was a ton of
Yeah.
liberation happening. And
Like,
so it was a great exploratory time for young adults at that point. And there was more openness and acceptance too, and a
hmm.
lot of resistance as well, but more open acceptance and trying new things. And now I think we've just gotten to this point where we've distilled down our free will so much through technology for our children. It's caused them to not have the free will. And I think they realize this subconsciously and in their soul that they are not allowed to make decisions outside of what their actions speak because they're addicted to things that we were not addicted to, you know what I mean? Like technology. And so when they resist that piece, instead of resisting that piece, they resist everything else. And there's a lot of anger. I think these younger kids right now just have a lot more anger because there is that withdrawal piece, when they do put down the technology, and it doesn't matter if they do it intentionally or not, they're still having the withdrawal. And then they're dealing with being told that they could choose whatever they want in life, but then at the same time, you have to fit this, these parameters. Whereas when you and I were kids and then our parents were children, there was that, but we resisted more to what they told us what we had to do, and we were more exploratory and we were more able to try different things because there was a sense of rebellion. There's not a sense of rebellion right now. There's more of a conformity kind of piece that's happening in our culture, I think.
Well,
And it's making pissed. It's making the kids pissed.
I think a big part of the rebellion was against our parents.
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't have many friends that didn't have divorced parents.
Yeah.
I didn't have
Me
many
too.
friends that weren't doing what I was doing, which is every other weekend kid. Like, I didn't have many people in my life who weren't dealing with the trauma of what the baby boomers generation brought,
That's
which
true.
was a lot of, in my village community and the things that I saw growing up, a lot of drug use, a lot of
Mhm.
alcoholism, a lot of pain and suffering from
Mhm.
Vietnam. So these men were coming home from Vietnam, like my dad, and they were broken and they're drinking and they're trying to process something, right? And then all the things are illegal to do.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of, I think, things that they fought while we were children. And I think what I've also seen from that is that, like, a lot of the people that I know that are now my age in their 40s, and 50s, their parents at some point grew out of a lot of those things and broke
Mhm.
those curses for the family. And so many of us didn't pick them up. You know what I mean? It's always like, of course, about like understanding too that there were their own curses that they were breaking. Because I don't think we can look back and be like, oh my God, look all the shitty things they did. But I think when you look at our generation now and how we're raising kids, this whole, like, me and you were raising our kids in this idea of what did we call it? Gentle parenting. Okay. And we've got grandparents who are like, what the actual and what? You want me to not say what? And I mean, all of a sudden there was just all these, right? And yet we weren't raised like that. So how are
Mhm.
we supposed to pick all of that up in a healed version of us when
And
we weren't
apply
a
it.
healed version? Right.
Mhm.
And so I think that there's a big difference between what our parents tolerated and allowed.
Mhm.
Again, I think you can connect it back to technology. I
Mhm.
mean, we weren't GPSed. They never
Mhm.
knew where we were. They
Mhm.
had to call a landline that was attached to the house. So if I was at
Right.
Disneyland for the weekend,
No one would know
you
where you
weren't going to
were.
be able to reach
That's
me,
right.
right? I used
Mhm.
that for too long. I used it too many times and then got caught, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
you'd have to call like all the different places to try to find your kid or
Mhm.
you don't have that at all right now. Like right now our kids they're on a very short leash.
That's true. And they
So
feel
then
that,
so then where do they get to,
have their freedom,
yeah, be like
express
ridiculously
themselves,
independent and just fuck the
have the
world?
expression.
Yeah, they don't really. Um,
Online, that's where they do it. And
mhm,
it's not healthy. It is to some degree. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's just masking completely. I could be my total and complete self here, but I can't do that there.
mhm.
And even online, they're not being totally free. They're being absolutely masked because they have to keep up with the trends. And, you know, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think as parents, we have it harder because we can't spank our kids and we can't, we can't. lay down the law because the law is against parents. Because if you
Mm.
do that, you get arrested or you get CPS called on you. And I'm not saying I would beat my children. I'm saying that even take weaponizing anything like taking away their phone or their technology and becomes is even actually a harsher punishment to our kids these days, especially those who are on technology a lot. And I think there's trauma involved, a lot more trauma than if you were to physically smack your child on the butt
Hmm.
and punish them because they are so addicted to technology and it was designed for them to become more and more addicted to it. And it
Well,
is their only, what they think is their only space to be free.
I think that that's why it's important to be aware of when we introduce technology. It
Yeah.
is different to introduce shows and things like that than it is to introduce, a cell phone that is
Hmm.
at their every whim. And I think it's
Hmm.
also important to remember that we live in a culture that isn't always safe, and so it is really important to be checking our kids' phones and being
Hmm.
involved in that way. And that does get harder as they become a teenager. Like
Hmm.
I was a high school teacher for 12 years, and before that, I did adult care a lot. And you know, kids would come in after getting in a fight with mom, right, and have a bad day at school, and you'd be talking with them and sharing with them as another adult in their life, but you're also understanding that they're going through really adult things
Hmm.
and they don't have the frontal lobe development to deal with it.
Hmm.
And they know that, like, at the end of the day, their tether is going to hold most of the time, right? Like, so if they had a safe home and a good situation, then their tether is going to hold enough for them that during a short period of time, they can go
Hmm.
try everything else.
Hmm.
Now, most of the times they come back to that tether one way or the other, right? Because that is what ends up feeling the safest and the most like home.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to pause for just a moment. If today's conversation is resonating with you, this is exactly the kind of practical conversations we have and share every week inside of our Peace Not Perfection Academy programs. Our mission is simple. We help women heal, awaken their inner magic, and lead through women's spiritual growth. We teach them healing arts and our sacred ascension framework. Whether you're just beginning your healing journey, looking to deepen your own practice, or feeling called to eventually guide others, we'd love to help you discover your next step. You can book a complimentary Sacred Path Clarity and coaching session using our link below. Now let's get back to today's conversation. Then we move into like our school system.
Hmm.
Our school system doesn't provide proper care for like
Hmm.
even the basic sensory overload, right?
Hmm.
Which we consider on a spectrum, but really everybody has some kind of sensory overload. I mean, you've got bells to tell you to go somewhere. You've got food that isn't good. You're being sat in a classroom with fluorescent lights, in a desk that isn't comfortable, in a chair that's hard. You have to wait in lines. You have to, orderly fashion. Like you can only go to the restroom during certain periods, and you have to ask if you want to go to the restroom beyond that. You usually can't eat in class, right? And we call this a preparation for the work field. And I remember working in middle school, and the middle school teachers would be like, I'm preparing them for high school. And I'd be like, yeah, well, I was a high school teacher for the last 5 years, and we didn't make them do any of that. Like, if they
Hmm.
wanted to eat in the classroom, they could eat in the classroom because guess what? In college, I can eat if I want to eat in the classroom.
Hmm.
I'm responsible for cleaning up after myself? So I think there's a lot of this aspect of being at school that is meant to be like the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 job. And we, like you started touching on, had a very clear direction when we were young, right?
Hmm.
You pick a career, you go to college, you finish that career, doesn't matter how much debt you get in, and then you go work that career and you pay off
That's
your student loans in whatever way possible and you buy your home and you roll on.
right. Hmm.
kids right now are looking and saying, well, that career is not available anymore. Is that career going to be available in 5 years? We're seeing jobs and companies implementing AI all over the place. We're seeing layoffs. We're seeing housing markets that have interest rates too high for them to get approved and jobs that are too low for them to get approved, right? So it does look kind of bleak for them.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, my kids and your kids have two different experiences because I homeschool my kids and your kids are going to high school right now. And so those are two very different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they are all experiencing the same pressure cooker of
What's
worry.
next?
Yeah. And like, what do
Mhm.
I do and how do I do it?
Mhm.
I think there's just a lot of pressure to perform and be perfect.
There is a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure of thinking that when they turn 18 that they're now an adult. Like it's a switch that gets flipped as soon as they turn 18. And that piece right there, it just seems to me that parents can soften that a little, you know? My
Hmm.
experience was you turn 18 and you're on your own. And I
Hmm.
was at 17. I handled it. And, but it was handleable. Like you said, back when we were that age, things were more available to us. There were plenty of jobs. There was, the housing market was affordable. The wages matched the housing. It was
Hmm.
now we have this situation where nothing's changed with the wages, but the housing market is way out of reach for most people. And jobs are not available. So it is scary. It is, and I, as a parent, chose to let my kids know early on that if they need a home base, they have a home base. Don't feel like when you turn 18, you're out the door and you have to figure it out. But you do have to figure it out. But just know that there's some things you don't have to figure out right away because to do it all at once was insane. And yes, we survived, but it caused a lot of trauma for me.
Hmm.
And it took me years to figure it out. I mean, I had to remove and recondition my brain with the money part because I went from being in my comfy home to taking care of everything and living in poverty at that moment because I was a college student and I worked two jobs and I didn't get paid very much because I was a brand new employee. So it's just there's this balance that I think parents can do with their kids to not enable them, but to allow them to take steps that make sense because it didn't make sense for us. If I
Hmm.
could go back in time, I probably would have milked living with my parents a lot longer in order to save money and work some jobs, go to college, and then move out. And
I
then
mean,
again,
my mom bribed me to stay home.
you're
I
funny.
literally laughed in her face. I literally called her out and said, "Are you bribing me to stay home?"
That's
Like I had my
so
shit
funny.
packed already. I was leaving. And she's like, "Yes, I absolutely am." And I
That's
laughed in her
awesome.
face and I walked out. But I think there is a sense of that too when you think about the mother-daughter dynamic.
Hmm.
Because I tell women this all the time. It is hard for a princess to become a queen when she's still in the queen's kingdom.
That's true.
Okay. And even though this is a part of our culture, and I don't know that it's necessarily part of all cultures, because a lot of other cultures respect elderly, and therefore they have this multi-generational village community piece that we really don't have in America because we kind
Hmm.
of push our kids at 18 out. There's this aspect of how we as humans, begin to have things, right? We will go with our husband and wife and leave our parents, that we become the queen and king in our own space. And even if that's in your own little tent or your own little home or your own little space, it becomes your queendom.
Hmm.
And then you step back into your mom's space where
Hmm.
she's the queen.
Been there, done that.
And so as a teen, they're the princess, but they are
Hmm.
also practicing being the queen, right?
Hmm.
And so there's just a lot of things that we can do to support teens. And I think that we also are raising a generation that is either going to comply or fight.
Mhm.
Because what we're seeing now and what's coming isn't going to get better. I think that what we're seeing now and what's coming is just going to get more difficult because, there are higher ups that would like to have power that they don't currently have. And so if we don't continue to fight our rights that we currently have in the United States because we have the Bill of Rights and we live in the United States, then we will give up that autonomy. And as we give up
Avoid
that
it.
autonomy, you
Mhm.
don't get it back.
You don't.
You don't get it
Mhm.
back. And
Mhm.
so I think it's important as people who are raising the next generation that we go back to some of the basics and make sure that they know how to debate, for example, and debate on both sides, whether they
Mhm.
believe in it or not. And if we can get that aspect, then at least we know that they can go study or go learn or go access those things. And I think right now, the reliance on technology is really causing our generation of children to get dumber, not smarter, because
Absolutely.
they're not thinking logically, they're thinking like a herd.
Well, their critical thinking is not taught in traditional US mainstream schools. So both of our sets of children started their education in the Waldorf tradition, which does teach critical thinking. And I
Hmm.
specifically chose Waldorf because of that. And now that my kids are in regular school, especially with my son, because he loves to learn. He is a seeker of knowledge because of that base of education he had with through Waldorf. And he critically thinks, and sometimes he comes home and he questions what he's been taught because he's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, when I think of the bigger picture, this is what I see, and then this is what I'm being told. And so teaching our kids to critically think before they use technology to do it for them, which doesn't
Hmm.
anyways do that, um, allows them to view the world in a way that allows them to formulate those debates. Getting
Yeah.
back to the debate, giving them the opportunity to actually know how to research something enough on their own without the assistance of AI to have a formulated opinion and with factual information to back them up, or even just their own personal beliefs. So when we have such a high dependency on I think what happens is we don't know what we think, we know what we ask and what the answer is. Does that make sense? And
Hmm.
so AI will give spoon feed us what we need as an answer, but we lose track of what's the moral compass or the inner guidance system that is actually directing our ship, our body. And we lose more and more touch with that. And so going back to the rites of passage are not only important for all children, including female and male, but they rekindle the spirit. They honor the spirit inside of us, and they allow us to connect to it. So they allow children time and space to connect to that piece inside of us without making it weird or, religious or whatever. It could just be what it is. This is your rite of passage. You're turning 18. You've become an adult in the eyes of the government, but there's a deeper message here when you turn 18 that you get to start steering your ship more and more on your own, that you get to fully connect to your intuition if you need to and your guidance system and see how the life that you've wanted or you're going to live, the journey you're going to live is going to unfold for you. You can either do it by listening to what everybody's telling you need to do, or you can have this rite of passage two or three during your, being raised that teaches you how to connect to it so that you're innately connecting to it and being able to move forward and connecting to your intuition, your guidance system. I don't
So I
know. I
think
think it's
I think that was
important.
the first solution. So the first
Yeah.
solution to supporting youth through
Hmm.
this time period and through the various ages, specifically as preteens, teens, and young adults,
Hmm.
is to be able to celebrate them as best as we can in different various ways. And it doesn't have to be a huge menarche ceremony, for example. It can
No.
just be little points of contact that we are taking a step back to celebrate and honor where that person is. The key is really in those kind of events to have some kind of elder be initiating the welcoming of that next stage and the quiet celebration that is like, actually taking time to do it, whether it be you're spending, 30 minutes just sitting in circle, or you're going outside and you're having several people give a blessing, like something that is just a little bit smaller and really just gives moment to. And then the third thing is a mentor in that,
Mhm.
right? Someone that is not a parent that they
Right.
can communicate with, that they know that they have support with, that is an adult that will talk with them, that opens up lines of communication, um, but that is not necessarily giving advice unless it's wanted,
Hmm.
but really just being like a listening ear. And most teens will find that in one way or the other. So if it's
Hmm.
not provided for them, they will seek it out without realizing they're seeking it. And a lot of times they'll seek that in a lover. So it really is, a mentor is a really, really important part of a teens and preteens and young adults existence. So, even taking those three things that you can do in a what we call coming of age ceremony, right? We do
Hmm.
several of those along the coming of age from 0 to 18.
Hmm.
Um, so celebrating them and the different ages that they're coming, and
Hmm.
then giving them reverence for nature and
Hmm.
for being outside and for understanding that that is grounding and that can bring them back to self. And part of that nature can also be presence with spiritual aspects, right? If for them it's God or Jesus, or if it's meditation, like they're all kind of in my mind and your mind the same thing, but giving them some kind of grounding something. Now, that really happens when they're younger, not when they're a teen, because again, a teen is all about how can I do anything my parents didn't do, right?
That's
Like I just
right.
need to try out everything
That's
like
right.
that they didn't do. And then, maybe I'll come back to it or
Mhm.
maybe I won't. And then the third thing is just as I said, having some kind of mentor, right? And better the mentors you know than the mentors you don't.
Mhm.
Now, can it be a teacher? Absolutely, that's fine. But
A
you do want
counselor
to
at
know who
school.
your student,
Hmm.
your kid, your teen is seeking as a mentor,
Hmm.
because again, they will seek it in other places if it's not seeked out with you. And um, I think that the fourth thing I would give is it's really important to understand that our kids are kids until they're about 14.
Hmm.
So even at 10, 11, they're their own humans, right? Like they're their own beings. They want their own things. And so we're going to be with them as adults way longer than we will ever be with them as kids. As I'm 40 something years old, right, in October, 44 in October. And so I've been with my husband longer than I've been with my parents. I met my husband
Right.
when I was 17. I've been with him longer than I've been with my parents.
Hmm.
I'm an adult longer than I have been a child. And
Hmm.
so, if as parents, we can understand number one, that we are going to be not friends, but friends, right? As an adult, you want them to come back and you want them to respect you. You want them to ask advice. You want them to understand that you are a safe place. And so, sometimes that means us just like apologizing because at some point they're going to come to us and tell us what crappy people we are. And
Absolutely.
we can choose to say, oh my God, da 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 da, right? And we can justify, or we can choose to just say, you're right, I'm sorry. I'm
Hmm.
sorry I did that. I'm sorry I was shitty. I'm sorry, whatever, right? Because that allows the transformation of their brain and their movement and their practice to be able to continue to grow forward. And so a mentor doesn't judge the things, right? A mentor will help you see both sides of it. And I, as a mentor of many teens, because I've worked with many teens and you and I mentor teens and stuff, one of the things I always do is I tell them, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And
Hmm.
I will just debate them on the other end. And, I have a lot of viewpoints and a lot of opinions, but as a mentor and a teacher, my students never really knew my viewpoints. They thought they
Hmm.
knew my viewpoints, but really they didn't because I was always just devil advocating whatever their viewpoint was. This helps them begin to understand their own thoughts. And I think that our job as a society is to raise people that are willing to come to the table and have the conversation.
Hmm.
I think the problem is that many people think that when they're coming to the table having the conversation, they're coming to change the other people's opinion.
Or attack.
And that's not going to happen. You're
Hmm.
not actually going to change their opinion when you come to the table and conversate. But what you
Mm-mm.
are going to do is you're going to keep planting the seeds so that if they are meant to come to the other side, they will eventually do that. They're not going to do it at the table in that moment, right? But what we've lost in this country or even in the world, it really is just the ability to be able to come to the table and have those conversations, those hard conversations on both sides. And
Hmm.
so, mentors are usually real good at doing that with teens and kids. And then I did come across one other thing that I'll just mention that I'm currently doing with my kids, and it is making sure that they understand the options that are available to them. And I think that we've always understood that like college is the only option, but I think that we are currently in a economy where helping our kids be able to build a business or build something that's going to be able to give them a leg up 10, 15, 20 years from now is actually going to be more useful to them than
Hmm.
college might be. And so really exploring all the things. Like, I think we've given trades a bad name, and so then a kid doesn't feel like they should be able to do that. It's like I ended up on that. I didn't choose it.
It's not respectable, but it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So give them as much experience as you can and build the skills. Build the skills
Mhm.
to debate, build the skills to think critically, build the skills to talk with adults, build the skills to have a relationship. Like the biggest things we hear in mentoring is adults who want their friends to just put a phone down. So
Mhm.
helping our kids learn that skill underneath our roof allows them to be able to manage things when they're not under our roof. And then they don't end up a college student who played video games all semester instead of got their college work done.
Mhm.
They become a college student who understands I get to play video games when I'm done getting my homework done. They know how to go take a walk because they need grounding or go for a workout because their body needs to move. So, really helping them learn how to regulate, giving them skills and a mentor and coming of age ceremonies. All of
Mhm.
these things really support young people and teens in growing and in becoming adults because, we're all in the experiment of life and we're all here on this healing journey. And I think letting them know that we are all on the same level and that they get to be who they want to be and choose the things they want to be is one of the most important things we can do. And we're not always going to like the choices they make. But if you come in expecting them to raise children the way that you raised them, or you come in expecting them to be who you want them to be or who you were, you're going to push them further away and you're going to be sad and disappointed. Um, and we all have boundaries. We all have places where we need to push and pull. So looking at our young adults like they're our little best friend and what they choose and do doesn't affect us allows us to see them as a whole person. I wouldn't go to my best friend and say, "You did what?" At dinner. I would be like, "Oh my God, no way," right? I would be like totally into her life and what she was doing. And I think that
I was just thinking I would be like, you did what? That would be me.
But with young adults and with
Hmm.
teens, I think a lot of times it comes from judgment on our end too, right? Or
Yes.
how it should be, or
Hmm.
I remember,
Always.
peaceful parenting, of course, right? Like all our parents thought
Yeah.
we were crazy. Like you want me to do what? And you're not doing like
Mhm.
if we can just learn to see them as our friend and that their home is their home and it doesn't affect us, then we can come in and support them and mentor them and be alongside them instead of feeling like we actually have to tell them what to do, you know? And I think that's sometimes where parents get it wrong. I,
Mhm.
I don't think you should be your kid's best friend. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. You do need to be a parent.
You got to just see them as an autonomous being
Yeah,
came here for their experience, and you're like they're in this car and they're learning how to drive, and you are the bumpers on each side of the lane, as
yeah.
opposed to so you could just push them back into the right, the lane without being the driver, without braking, without steering for them. Because
Mhm.
I think it really does start young, and I can't say that I didn't make mistakes in that, even though I always had that on the forefront
Well,
of
we
my
all do
mind.
that. We're not
But I
perfect
am,
here.
especially, I know, right? Peace, not perfection, ladies. But really, now that they're teenagers, I can step more fully into that, where I always wanted to constantly be that. And that's because I had my own stuff to work out during their childhood. I mean,
Yeah,
there was parts of me that were unhealed because I didn't even know that they were unhealed until I had children. It's because
absolutely.
children are your biggest growth opportunity. They really are. You're going to learn
Hmm.
so much about yourself and heal so much if you allow it to be that. But when they became teenagers, and now that they're teenagers, I can definitely see how being the bumpers on their lane where they're driving helps them more, because we really do, and in life we really do want to make a lot of mistakes, because the mistakes are going to be our failures, are going to be our blessings and our teachers. So if they could do that now while they're younger and within our house, then they're able to have a safe space to make those mistakes and then carry on, if we're not attacking them or coming from the lens of judgment, like you said. So that's
Right.
really what the friendship is. The friendship is, I'm here to support you. I may not choose what you chose. I may not even like what you chose, but you're my friend because you're a piece of me. Not only that, you are a soul having its soul's journey, and I recognize that in you. That I'm not going to tell you all the ways that you did it wrong unless I
Mm.
need to step in and tell you all the ways that you did it wrong, because you don't have that lesson yet. And I feel called to do that. But most times when they're teenagers, they learn by doing, and then they're like, regrets, regrets. They already are in that process of trying things and the regrets, and then they won't
Hmm.
do that again. And they have a lot of successes too. So the rites of passage is seeing the whole being and seeing the successes and illuminating those pieces for them, so that when they do go to the next phase of their life, they will remember all the things that they were told by all these mentors, these adult mentors who come and share with them the beauty of who they are through their eyes, even if it doesn't necessarily register in the moment, it will register for the lifetime, because it's a soul to soul conversation.
Hmm.
It's not just, a party. It's not just a birthday party. It's not just this or that. It's actually, carving out time to celebrate the person within. It doesn't have to be woo woo, and it can be something that's more geared towards what they're interested in. So my daughter didn't want a sweet 16. She wanted to have a trip to Miami. Miami was crazy for me because it's just a lot of energy to buffer. But what I did see with my daughter was that the world opened up to her in that moment. She had now had an opportunity to go someplace that she's always wanted to go and dreamed about going, and she embraced it fully, like in a way that I don't think I even embraced things fully. She just completely absorbed the energy of that moment. But it wasn't just being in Miami, it was honoring her journey. It was the adults in her life honoring her journey. It was giving her a little bit of her queendom, because, she set the pace, she got to choose. And it was a rite of passage in so many ways. So it could be as simple as that, is what I'm saying. It could be like a
Mhm.
trip that they plan and they get to, create for themselves.
Yeah. That's one of the things my daughter realized.
Mhm.
She said, I was lonely and then I realized that I'm in control of my life and I can just set up things. I can just set up and go do
Yeah,
what I want with my friends. I don't have to like wait for someone to set it up for me. So
right.
giving them these opportunities to become one, but in a safe zone really helps a
Mhm.
lot.
If today's episode Thank you for spending time with us today. If this episode supported you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another woman who could use a little more peace in her life. If you're ready to go deeper, visit Peace Not Perfection Academy to explore our courses, certifications, and our sacred community. Until next time, remember, live in peace, not in pieces, and we'll see you next week. Peace out, witches!